Kia ora, my name is Craig Murray, and you have tuned into the New Zealand Small Business and Entrepreneur Festival podcast, delivered to you by DHL, helping connect your business to the world. Today, we are super pumped. We have got an expert in well-being, Philly Powell, on the podcast, and we're going to be talking about the Wellbeing Tick and why well-being is important for your business. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Philly into the stream. Kia ora.
Kia ora morena, Craig.
How are you?
Really well, thanks.
I am always recording this podcast from Rotorua, middle of the North Island. For those of you who are listening to this from outside of New Zealand, whereabouts are you?
I'm in Parramatta in Wellington.
Wellington, the capital of New Zealand, down the bottom of the North Island. I was about to say South Island. Lovely place, cool place. Hey, thank you so much for your time. We're going to roll straight into our questions because we've got a lot to cover. And one of the questions I asked all of our podcast guests is if in the next couple of minutes, if you could just go through your first ever job, and I'm talking whatever the first ever job was, whether you were delivering pamphlets or you're working at a cafe, and then a little bit of your origin, your professional origin story, your first proper paid job where you're in a career sort of job, and then every little step, not every little step, but how you got to where you are now. And I'll hand it over to you.
Awesome, thanks. So it all started back when I was about 16 at New Zealand Natural, which for those of you who don't know, it's an amazing, or was an amazing ice cream parlor, and probably indicates my addiction for ice cream these days. So after that, I was doing that while I was at university. I literally left college thinking, what on earth am I going to do? Going to go to university. There was a bit of an expectation to be the first in the family. I looked on the list of degrees. They all looked really boring apart from one that said tourism management.
Oh, yeah.
I thought, cool, I love traveling and holidays. This sounds interesting. So away I went. And during that degree, I had one paper in human resources. It was a kind of commerce-based degree. And the lecturer was this Aussie guy. He told really funny stories about people smoking pot and driving forklifts and how that was a health and safety risk. And I just, really connected. But it was also combined with I had this really strong belief that people needed to be treated fairly. And I guess that sort of saw me quite well as I went into this career in HR. So as I finished my degree in tourism, I thought I was heading into that industry. Started doing a bit of research, found out that it was a very niche area and very hard to get into. So signed up with an agency. The agency said, hey, we've got this job in payroll. And at that point in time, I was probably like 21, quite naive. I didn't realize they actually paid people to pay people. But anyway, I decided to take up this opportunity, which exposed me to working with an HR team. And I thought, I started to get quite interested in what they were doing. From there, I moved through various roles in private sector, government, recruitment, and into HR advisory. And I guess spanned a good, 10 plus years working in that space. And then when I came back from overseas, I was offered a role at Chorus, and part of that role was to design and lead a wellbeing program. And I just thought, wow, that is so awesome. It collided with a time in my life where I was going through my own wellbeing journey. And so I took up this opportunity, and I guess what started from there was this real journey around merging my passion with my profession. And so I started there in 2015, worked from designing that program from scratch to at the end of last year, getting to the point of being nationally recognised for the wellbeing program there for 3 national awards. Wow. And in that time, leading up to the end of my career at Chorus, I guess I was starting to think about what next. And actually, sorry, I should rewind. And it was around about 2018, as I was on my own personal wellbeing journey, I did start to study nutrition. I got really fascinated by working with various naturopaths and health practitioners on the power of food and how that could really help me heal my gut and issues that I was facing. So I took a course in nutrition, and from there I was asked by my gym that I was at the time to run a nutrition program. So gave that a bit of a whirl, and we had heaps of people take part, and it was actually really successful. And it was an amazing thrill to see these people, changing their lifestyle, diets, losing weight, all of that good stuff. And so they said, perhaps you should run one again. And I was like, yeah, that's cool. And they said, but this time we think you need your own brand. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's kind of like medium to long term. Like that's not now, I'm not ready for that. I've got a full-time job. And they said, well, basically you can't do it unless you come in under your own brand. So me being me, I decided that I would go in 110%. I employed a brand agency. I worked on this brand and website and all of that good stuff. And that was the launch of the Wellbeing Junkie. So it still exists today, a nutrition and wellbeing coaching business to support individuals with their health and wellbeing. So that was my first little, I guess, experience with running a business. Around that time, I was still working for Chorus, and I happened to also be, writing. This was pre-COVID. They're refreshing the flexible working policy. I thought, what better way to, launch this by actually, taking part in it myself and role modeling. So I plucked up the courage after one summer holiday to ask my boss if I could work at home one day a week. That sort of evolved into maybe 2 days a week. And then it got to the point where I was like, well, if I really want to be able to work with clients and do this wellbeing junkie work, this I actually don't like the word side hustle, because I think that sounds like there's a lot of pressure around that. That's very anti-wellbeing hustle. So I called it my passion project, and I also had to pluck up the courage to reduce my hours. So I went from 40 hours to 36. And then eventually that was still, not enough. And it was impacting my well-being. So I moved to 32. And essentially I had this, really great work-life balance of being able to do 2 afternoons a week working on my passion project, or maybe if I didn't have any clients, just, doing whatever I wanted to do, and be able to still, run this wellbeing program and the work that I did at Chorus in 4 days a week. So yeah, then it was like, okay, well, I can see that I'm kind of getting this program to a point of maturity, nearly 6 years at the organization. And I had been working with mentors along the way. And I remember one of them saying to me, like 5 years, Philly, like that's going to be enough. And I was getting into that 6th year. So I fortunately, at the start of last year, I'd been working with Sarah Laurie. She runs a workplace wellbeing platform called Take a Breath. We had implemented that at Chorus, and we obviously talked a lot, and she was curious to know a little bit about the Wellbeing Junkie, and she generously offered some of her time, and then we started this mentorship relationship, which I'm forever grateful for. And I started exploring what would it look like to take this experience and skill set that I'd got from, working at Chorus, and how could I essentially take that to as many businesses as possible in New Zealand. So sort of going from impacting employees within a company to impacting a country when it comes to workplace wellbeing. So the goal was pretty huge, but what that was going to look like, I guess, to get there required some real deep thinking and thought and processing. And I guess that's leading me to, where I've got to today. And so in end of July last year, I took the leap of faith to leave my corporate role. And because what was coming up in these mentoring sessions is, I had the concept, but I didn't have the time. So how can you be working, 4 days a week? It was a pretty full on job, and try to be starting a business at the same time. It was never going to work. So I guess the solution was you need to resign and fully commit.
And so that was July 2021. And
Yep.
so now, okay, cool. So how has the last sort of, what were we, 6 months, 7 months now? How's it been for you, moving all in on your business?
Yeah. So an absolutely amazing experience, and I had been doing some reading, and somewhere along the way before I started this venture was that starting your own business is going to be the biggest ever personal development journey you ever go on, and it absolutely is in so many ways. So basically in August, I started getting, really deep into, oh, so sorry, I'll step back. By the time I'd left Chorus, I decided through my mentoring sessions that um, rather than being a workplace wellbeing consultant where it was sort of a little bit hard to position myself in the market, I had come up with the idea that I would launch New Zealand's first Wellbeing Tick, which is a workplace wellbeing accreditation program, very much based off my experience of implementing such programs like the Gender Tick and the Rainbow Tick within Chorus. I really love the structure and the framework and how it facilitated us as an organization to improve in areas that we weren't experts ourselves. And so there I went on this journey to, really decide if this was going to be feasible in New Zealand, and taking the sort of framework that I developed at Chorus and looking internationally to see what our friends, particularly in the UK and the US, were doing in this space. They're further ahead. And looking at research, within Australia and New Zealand. Tribute the work of Dr. Hilary Bennett and her mental wellbeing by design framework that helped me with some of my thinking. And I came up with this concept, and I guess that time that I had to research that, then it was like the decision was made, and then it was, okay, how am I need a brand, like it's the Wellbeing Tick. So how am I going to brand this logo, website? So back to my brand agency, Claire Mance from Talk Communications and her awesome team. They started me on that journey of really, thinking about those brand elements. But what I love so much about working with Claire is that they're not just about creating the brand, they're about making you really think about your business model. And so we kind of went from these ideas of, is it going to be the corporate wellbeing junkie? Is it going to be the tick and workshops and, it was all, and it was, all of this thinking to get to the point of like, no, I'm just going to focus on one thing. I'm going to hone on this one accreditation program, go all in there, and then see what happens. So that's sort of been the journey of, before Christmas was all about brand and website, and I officially launched to the public on the 6th of December.
I might dig a little bit into the Wellbeing Tech. If I was a business and we contacted you and we said, hey, look, we're really interested in going through your program, what sort of things do you look for? Or what is the framework? Is it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Let me explain. So basically the Wellbeing Tick, it's an accreditation program that works on an annual cycle. So at the start of the year, I would go into the business and survey all employees that wanted to participate in a survey, which really digs into employees' wellbeing needs and challenges and issues from a work and personal perspective, risks around burnout, what they think of the company's current wellbeing initiatives or support, ideas that they have to improve things, what they think of the leadership commitment to wellbeing, and it's also gives the opportunity for people to record their demographics so that we can get quite pointy in terms of, is there particular support needed for different ethnicities or different age groups or perhaps different offices or locations within the country. So we gather this information, really rich data, to give the organisation a feel for what are the actual wellbeing risks and concerns within the business, and what are some of the ways that we can work to solve that. I also follow that up with focus groups to dig a little bit deeper to kind of understand, in a face-to-face kind of conversational manner, and then pull together a report that looks at the high level trends and themes. And then I work out recommendations on what could be some of the key priorities that are really going to shift the culture within the organization to make it a really healthy and safe, psychologically, physically safe working environment. And then work with their project team. So there'd be some kind of wellbeing resource. It might be health and safety, HR, and have an internal team to present these recommendations to. And then also the accreditation component is that they get given a certain amount of pillars of well-being. So in the first year, it's looking at things like boosting holistic well-being, building the foundations, and supporting their people. And they get certain criteria that they need to chip away at over the first year and provide evidence at the end of the year. So essentially, they've got some recommendations out of the survey and the focus groups to focus on. They've got some criteria to work towards. We shape up a strategy that's going to help them achieve that. They work throughout the year on that, get support with me along the way. And then at the end of the year, they provide the evidence against the criteria. I go back into the organization, do the survey again, see if things have changed, checking that what HR or health and safety is saying is the same as what the people are saying, or identifying the mismatch where there might be gaps in that those perspectives, and then assess them as to whether they have met the the benchmark for attaining the wellbeing tick for that year. So that's it in a nutshell. And it really is a framework. So there's 8 pillars that an organization works across, a 1 to 5 year journey. And I say to organizations, and this isn't overnight. We're not like, we're not going to do something, chuck a few yoga classes and some mental health training on, and it's going to change the culture in 1 year. These organizations are committing for a minimum of 3 years, because this is transformative culture change. And this stuff is, it takes a long time to change those behaviors, the mindsets, abolish unhealthy ways of working. And there's a lot of kind of stuff behind the scenes, from changing policies to creating governance structures, committees. There's a lot of work involved to get to that point. Of really shifting the culture.
So it sounds like there is a lot of your time that's involved, immersed into another business work culture. Is it just you working with Wellbeing Tech, or have you got a whole bunch of contractors as well?
So at this point in time, in terms of the delivery and the development, or the delivery is me at this point. I'm a startup. I don't have the financial means to be employing a team, and I just also aren't at the capacity with clients to need that yet. So at the moment, my support team would be the likes of my brand and marketing support, accountant, obviously. I have a mentor, and I'm also outsourcing some work at the moment to the wonderful Stephanie Love. She's also just gone out at her own HR professional, and she's my survey and reporting guru. And that's been really, really beneficial to get this super slick survey and reporting done.
So when you capture, sorry, I'm gonna keep talking about this because it's super cool. So when you're capturing all the information from your interviews with staff and management and HR, how do you capture it? Do you write it down, or do you put it into?
Yeah.
Is there sort of some sort of software that you put it into?
So for the survey, I am using Surveymonkey at this point in time. For it's something that I've used before in the past, that I'm familiar with. It's affordable, and I'm actually just working through with one of the founding members as to ensuring that the security and all of that stuff is up to scratch for privacy and confidential purposes. And then for the focus groups, I am still working through what my process will be for that.
Okay, cool. I've got a question about processes that I might ask a little bit later on. You must. So over the 6 years that you're working with Chorus, and they've got how many staff do Chorus have? It's a big
That
team,
sort
is it?
of it varied sort of from 1,000 to about 800 now.
Mm. And from the work that you're doing inside other businesses now, are there any sort of common themes that you're seeing that are impacting the well-being of people who are working, like common sort of traits?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest risk at the moment that's very topical is burnout.
Hmm.
So, from the start of, I mean, actually before the start of the pandemic, this was already on the rise. But I think what the pandemic has led to is, a lot more people working at home, this hybrid working environment. And there's a lot of people that struggle to turn off. I'm at home, the computer's just down the hallway. I can start early, I don't have to commute. They get engrossed in their work, they've got lots of work to do, they don't know when to stop. So there's just been this real creep in the amount of hours that people have been working since COVID commenced. So burnout is a real risk. And every organization that I speak to, there are concerns around, workload, and they're overwhelmed from so much to do, deadlines, pressure, long hours. Um, they're also facing the mental health challenges that come with the pandemic and the uncertainty that's been around for the last couple of years, and it's ongoing. We're in red alert, we've got Omicron coming, so what does that mean? Navigating things like the vaccinations in the workplaces. So yeah, there is, I think, the last couple of years has been a really challenging time for the workplaces and supporting their employees' well-being, because I think what you're seeing is, you know, maybe before COVID or earlier, it used to be about, you show up to work, you kind of put your professional hat on and you
Yeah.
speak a little bit different, and you dress different and all this stuff. Then we went into this pandemic where we are like we are now. We're in our homes, you're in my dining room. And over time, I guess that formality has dropped off, which is awesome.
Mm.
you know, like I'm wearing my activewear on the bottom, all of that kind of mullet dressing, and
Mullet dressing.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I guess, like, I even saw it when I went back to the office, that the standard of dress had gone from, the days of kind of power suits and high heels and, full suits and ties and stuff for men to, I'm seeing like tie-dyed t-shirts, sneakers, jeans,
All
and it's
birds.
totally cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And like, as you get older and a bit more practical, it's like it's actually quite comfy wearing sneakers, walking from the train station to work.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of go, wow, now I can work in this environment that I'm comfortable with what I'm wearing. I don't have to sort of live to these sort of status quo standards of what the appropriate clothing is for work. And so I do feel that there's been this, we've stopped having to put on our professional hat, and we can be a lot more authentic. And I guess some of that also comes from the focus around the work in the diversity and inclusion space, and really trying to
Mm.
create a sense of belonging for people in the workplace.
That resonates with me so a lot. I used to call myself the corporate Craig, and then the regular Craig, and it took, I suppose, a number of years and years actually. It wasn't up until like probably 4 or 5 years ago where I was just Craig. I was authentically myself, and I didn't wear a hat and things like this to work,
Mm,
because sometimes that wasn't appropriate for the wherever I was working. But still, I was still always the same Craig. I'm the same dude, whether I'm talking to my mates fishing or surfing or mountain biking, or trying to make a sale for Destination Rotorua or wherever I was working at the time. Yeah, so I think there has been a massive shift, and it's a bit of confidence in interpersonally as well. I feel, to be able to be your authentic self.
totally.
Why do you think well-being is important for a business?
Yeah. So when I was doing my thinking around this, I actually went back to my business plan. So,
Mm.
or yeah, whatever a business plan is supposed to look like. I really kind of made it up myself, but I wanted to answer, the Simon Sinek why, and you ask yourself
Oh yeah.
why, say 6 times. And,
Mm.
it's kind of like, well, why is well-being important? Well, well-being is essential if we want to thrive and live our best lives. And also because when we feel, think, feel good, it enables us to show up as our best selves and really to perform at our best. And that's personally, like whether it's in the gym in the morning, or whether it's work, me showing up to this podcast today. And life is just easier, it's happier, it's more fulfilling, it's just richer. And when we're physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually healthier and stronger, we're more likely to experience joy, peace, and happiness in life. And that's kind of what it's all about. And I think that, well-being becomes important because we gather up all of these tools and resources and knowledge and self-awareness, with these different modalities that we might practice, whether it's meditation, whether it's fishing, mountain biking, cooking whole foods, um, all of that kind of stuff that helps us to navigate the really challenging times in life, and to avoid that stress, worry, and fear. And so you kind of go, well, well-being is about humans thriving at their best. So wouldn't it make sense that humans or employees are thriving and at their best and feeling like this when they're at work?
Mm.
And I don't know what I was writing the other day, but I was talking about how we should actually become better, healthier humans by going to work. A lot of people will go, what? you know but I believe that when we, as individuals, focus on choosing a career or a job that really works to our strengths and our interests, it's not just about the paycheck. We choose very carefully the company that we're going to work for. What's the culture there? What are the benefits? How are they going to support me? How are they going to develop me? Going to an interview and actually meeting the person that's going to be leading you. Like, this is a two-way street. What are the how you like to be led. Is this leader going to be actually supporting you on your journey? Are they going to be allowing you these flexible working arrangements that supports your lifestyle? Is this job, company, boss, pay, all of that stuff, is this sufficient enough for me to go in, day out, and it boosts my well-being by what I'm getting out of it in terms of development and the supportive environment that you're working in.
Wow, that's a great answer. I was going to ask you a question about your what brands had the biggest impact on you, but I might change it slightly to sit and being more aligned to well-being. Is there a brand that you're familiar with that has a really strong culture, or you'd think of them as being the they'll definitely get a Wellbeing Tick because of the things that that they've done in the past, apart from Chorus, because you've obviously already set that up.
Yeah. So you mean maybe not brand but company?
Yeah, company. Could be Google, could be Nike.
Yeah.
It could be the ice cream parlor that you used to work for. I'm not sure.
Oh, I mean, I'm just gonna go random to something that came up in my career. It was teaching people around positive workplace culture, and it was the fish market in Seattle.
Oh yeah.
And there was this fish market there that, like they're selling fish. But what they used to do was like, with their markers and stuff, draw little happy faces on the fish. They'd throw the fish around and they'd have this really they'd turn this really boring job into something fun. So that was just something that popped up. But in terms of New Zealand companies, I mean, there's actually quite a lot of organizations that are really starting to put a lot of emphasis in this space. So probably too many to name names. I mean, there's been various awards where organizations are picking them up. What would be my answer there?
I like the fish one because there's a short little video about it, and they've actually got a book, and then
Yes.
they're like, "Hey, fish!" and they throw it out and catch it. It's super cool, and it's probably the third or fourth time that fish example has come up over my podcast. So I'm going to have to link that video somewhere and say, "Hey, look,
Yeah, totally.
this is how you can because they're called fishmongers. So this is how you could create a job that you think may not be cool to be something that you really want to be involved with, because they get crowds of people just to watch people engage, and they must sell a hell of a lot more fish than poor mate down the road who's just cuts fish
Totally.
and sells it. Yeah,
Yep.
that's
Yeah, and
cool.
I mean, another one that springs to mind in terms of like a global brand would be Lululemon,
Hmm.
obviously in the well-being industry. And I guess having known the kind of backstory of being in Vancouver and knowing that it all started there, and um, they've created this amazing global brand that's based on really high quality, but they also do a lot for the community. So they have Lululemon ambassadors that go out there in the community. They do run clubs, they offer free yoga classes, that kind of thing. I think it's really cool when the organization is, they've got a great culture, but then they're also spreading that out into the community as well.
Cool. I'm going to move to another question. Our audience is made up of small and medium businesses typically around New Zealand. If a small business is out there doing the mahi right now, they don't have a huge amount of time or budget, because it's real tricky out there at the moment, to focus on well-being or invest in a well-being plan. What would be a good start for them?
Yeah. So it can be really, really as simple as getting the team together, setting aside some time and having an informal discussion. Maybe you get some food, maybe you get some beers. I don't know what your environment's like. And talking about what do you need to have an awesome day at work.
Hmm.
Things will start popping out like, "Oh, I need coffee, I need a bit of banter, I need sausage rolls. I need the ability to have time to focus. I like having the ability to work at home a few days a week. Whatever it might be. And what I learnt with this question, it was a really smart question that I sort of interpreted from a Mental Health Foundation Train the Trainer workshop I went to a few years ago, is that as opposed to setting up a mental health 101, first aid, stress management type workshop that no one really wants to go to or put their hand up for, you've asked someone a really simple question, using, informal language. What do you need to have an awesome day at work?
Mm.
You haven't asked them, you know, what do you need to support your mental health? But you actually have
Mm.
at the same
Mm.
time. And so we get all this positive stuff going, and I guess what we start understanding from this is, well, you know, if you've got shit coffee in the office, come on, like that's just a small low-hanging fruit. Let's change the coffee because
Yeah.
they're complaining about that, or they want some almond milk, or whatever it is. And then have a conversation around, well, what stops you having an awesome day at work? And
Mm.
you might be, maybe you're gosh, I was trying to think of an example, like a tradie example, but I haven't really worked
Mm.
in that space. But for them it might be like, oh, like the portaloos are disgusting.
Mm. Yeah.
Well, let's sort
Mm.
them out,
Yeah. Our
or
lunchroom's gross. It's like
yeah,
just we're
yeah,
sitting in wheelbarrows.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, or like this really sucks working till 5 o'clock in summer. Well, maybe we can start earlier and finish earlier,
mm.
that kind of stuff. So I think it's really starts with the conversation. How do we actually start, as the boss or the founder, like how do we, or the team leader, how do we start actually understanding what is impacting your people's well-being, and
Mm.
don't be afraid to limit it to work. You know, back to that conversation before. Craig is Craig,
Mm.
and I guess it's trying to build that. I guess it's showing vulnerability, and Craig Hudson talked about this, is, the more you can show up and, be a bit more vulnerable with what you share that's happening outside of work, that
Mm.
then builds the trust with your employees to be able to go, oh, yeah, hey, actually, me and the missus had an argument last night. I'm not really on my game today. Or it might be, there's this movement now where older women going through menopause are actually being able to actually talk about that in the
Mm.
workplace, because it does actually impact their performance, and there will be days where they're not feeling their best. So,
Mm.
it's about, I say it's about treating humans as human beings and just having some really open dialogue.
Do you think
Oh,
there's
and then the final bit, sorry, the
oh, yeah,
final bit is,
that's good.
let's not just talk about it. Let's like write it down, record it, and create an action plan and talk about, okay, well, if these are some of the issues that we're facing, like what can we do to solve some of that, and actually chip away, and then regularly check in and talk to this plan. Doesn't need to be pretty or anything, but just talk to it at your regular team meetings or one-on-ones with your leader.
Cool. It's really helpful. That's and really simple sort of things that you don't need to have.
You don't need any money for that. Maybe some coffee might be a little bit more expensive. I don't know.
I suppose it is a courageous question to ask from a manager. Let's go into the tradie sort of space, because I did work in there for a little bit when I left school with my dad. Wasn't
Yep.
I can't imagine that he would ever ask that question of me. How do they start to approach it? They're like, hey guys, we're gonna have a bit of a catch up on Thursday night. We're gonna finish at 4. We're gonna have a bit of a barbie, and we just want to have a chat to you guys about how we can make our team a little bit tighter, and or what would help make working with us, I should say, better.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's always going to depend on the individual and, who works in your team. But I think it's about the leader or the business owner really coming from a place of being genuine. And it might be like, hey guys or girls, guys and girls, you know, um, maybe I've been doing some thinking, I've been listening to some podcasts, or I heard this, watched this show, and there's been a lot of talk about well-being and culture, and some of my observations of us as a team, or I know that we've been challenged by the COVID and having to reduce hours, or all of this uncertainty, and me personally, I think it's bringing in the me personally, this has really impacted me too, the financial pressure that this has had on the business. And I know that we've got people in the team that might be, someone might have had someone that passed away, or whatever, that's the sort of well-being challenges within the team. And kind of coming from that place of like, I want to make sure that when you guys and girls are coming to work, that you're having a really good time. And I want to understand if there's anything that I can do as the owner of this business to create this to be a really positive culture, and really open up the conversation, and for people to be able to come and share challenges or things that they need to support them in their time at work.
Brilliant. I'm going to take that snippet out, because that's going to be really powerful for a lot of businesses out there who think that having a wellbeing plan is going to be a mighty financial investment, where sometimes it doesn't have to be.
No.
So what would your single most valuable piece of advice be for a business right now that is just starting out?
Oh, get a mentor, hands down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I just to kind of give people some practical examples of how to do that. At the start of my career, I went through the HR NZ, Human Resources NZ Institute, and got one that way. When I moved on from that person, I actually put it out there on LinkedIn. I said, hey, I'm looking for a mentor to support me in my HR development. I was so fortunate to get, two guys that owned HR consultancy at the time, and they said, hey, what we'll do is 1 month you can see me, the other month you can see him. And as a female working in the HR industry, having male mentors was a real, that I was very lucky to have that, because it's so female dominated.
Okay.
And I also got the different perspectives of two different guys. So that was an amazing couple of years that I spent with them. And from there, it was interesting actually. I'm quite a big component of holistic type alternative support, and I went to an intuitive guide, and I'm actually seeing her in a couple of weeks, and it was a few years ago, and she told me that I didn't need an HR mentor anymore. I needed a business coach. I can hear her voice right now, and to think, like, I never thought I'd be starting a business, and here I am. So, if you guys are into that kind of stuff, try it out, because she was so right. And then I ended up with Sarah Laurie, who I spoke about earlier, just by chance. And also, in addition to that, I reconnected with a family friend, Kiwi family friend that lives in the UK. She's an amazing, she just knows so much about startups. She's actually in a startup network. She's a business mentor, Claire Kavanagh. And, it's been great for us to connect. We both have been living alone in this pandemic. So connect on a personal level. But also she's been really helping me with a different perspective to, say, Sarah here in New Zealand, because I've got different skill sets and experiences. So um, I feel very fortunate to have them both. And then I must also add, I have a third mentor. She is a friend, Holly Rees, and she's actually just started her own career coaching business called Career Space. So check that out. And we do a monthly Zoom where we basically sort of like, do reverse coaching. So we're just, we actually caught up last night and we were talking through all the various things like SEO, website optimization, and, we're going through building our website together. So anyone that's kind of going through the process at the same time is also so valuable because you're in the details together. And that's just been a really valuable relationship to connect with.
Where do you see the Wellbeing Tech in 5 years' time from now? Like, what's your aspiration?
Yeah. So the aspiration really about the Wellbeing Tick has always been that I want to have a significant impact on the alarming state of mental health in New Zealand. And so, like, I myself have experienced the heavy emotional toll that it can take of seeing family members go through mental illness. I've been in some pretty dark spaces myself. But the fortunate thing is, I've had access to amazing support and resources in the workplaces that I've been at, and particularly, Chorus in the last, 6 years of my career. I was so lucky to draw upon all of the good stuff there to help me navigate these challenging times. But so many Kiwis don't have access to this at work. And so the workplace really plays a critical role, I believe, in educating employees about well-being, mental health. And so my vision is that, imagine if we could have all Kiwi businesses that are kind of in that, 300 plus employees, to have the Wellbeing Tick, which is about, it's over 20% of the population. So it's about 1.3 million people. Then you go, imagine if they're sharing that stuff with their family, their friends, their flatmates, the ripple effect this can create. And I wrote a post about it recently, like, workplaces literally have the power to save lives. So I guess by bringing in the Wellbeing Tech and providing organizations with this framework, this guided facilitated process to build that wellbeing culture, I feel like that is going to help the greater Aotearoa in the alarming state of mental health. That's the vision.
Epic. 2 more questions. What content do you consume yourself personally for a little bit of Philly escapism?
Yeah, well, I am a self-confessed wellbeing junkie, so pretty much everything I look at, listen to is wellbeing related.
What's your
At the
favorite?
moment,
Yeah.
so at the moment I'm currently switching between 2 books. Reading Jay Shetty's Think Like a Monk, which is
Oh, yeah.
awesome.
I've heard a lot about that book. Yep.
Yeah, and then also Suzi McAlpine's Beyond Burnout, which is all about burnout in the workplace. She's a phenomenal leadership coach specializing in burnout in New Zealand. I'm also a podcast binge listener. I don't own Netflix, but I can binge pretty awesome on podcasts. And so a couple of the ones that I am listening to that are work related or workplace wellbeing, or no more work in general, is Deep Questions by Cal Newport. He's the guy that did the deep work. And Work Life by Adam Grant, who's an amazing org psych. He's someone good to follow actually on LinkedIn or Twitter or wherever you want to find them. And Sarah McGuinness's Workplace Wellbeing podcast from the Revolutionaries of Wellbeing. You might just find me on an episode, and some other amazing Kiwi businesses that are talking about how they implement wellbeing. So that's very relevant here. And on a personal note, I like Jay Shetty's On Purpose podcast. Jimmy Hunt, who's done a lot of
Yep.
work in workplace wellbeing and mental fitness. Joe Rogan, he's always an interesting one, particularly in these times.
Right now he is. He's in the
Yeah,
media at the moment.
yeah. And on LinkedIn, from a workplace wellbeing perspective, I really like following Jen Fisher. She's the Deloitte Chief Wellbeing Officer. So they're really kind of global leaders in that space. Jahan Kaizen-Sander, I'm not sure if I've got the name right. He's
Castaneda. Yep.
Yes, yeah, amazing journalist and storyteller that's written a book called "This Is Not the End." I gave it to my brother for Christmas, and he's learning a lot from that. And I love. He's really challenging people's thinking and a really different approach to mental health kind of awareness in New Zealand, which is awesome.
So
And
Jahan.
yeah,
Is our MC for the NZ SME Festival.
I'm there.
Yeah, he's the man. He's awesome.
Yeah, totally. And Lucas Finch, he's the global head of
It's a
wellbeing
lot
in
of
Zero.
stuff.
Yeah. Oh, trust
Awesome.
me, I could talk all day. I am a bit of a
Yeah.
consumer of content.
Yeah, I thought I was as well, but wow, you just absolutely mowed over me. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Very, very last question. Who do you think that would be a great guest to have on the SME podcast?
This was so tricky.
I
I still don't know what the answer is.
might hunt down your mentor,
Yes, do Sarah Laurie.
Sarah
She's
Laurie.
incredible. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna at Sarah Laurie, and when I drop this
Yeah.
podcast, and hopefully we can have her as a guest on the
Yeah, do
podcast.
that.
Awesome, Philly. This has been so cool. I very, very much appreciate your time. We will link as much as we can to the Wellbeing Tick in any of the show notes, Spotify, LinkedIn, YouTube, Anchor, all those sorts of things. Thank you very much for your time. You're awesome.
Oh, thank you so much for the opportunity. It's been fun.
Well, thank you so much. You have a great day, and hopefully I'll be able to see you in person at one of the festivals or before then. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. See ya.
See you later. Bye.